Hello viewers, Super GT here. A couple of races around the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, or Nuremberg as a lot of people seem to call it. Did you know that the Nazis actually had to lap the Nuremberg circuit in under 8 minutes? Otherwise they'd be sentenced to death. Anyway, just a bit of trivia for you. You can see there, because of the Spa wet race the week before this one, I, for some reason, have wet tyres on. Well, the reason is I used this car with wet tyres in that race and didn't notice it didn't change back for this one. So go for the quick pit stop at the start of the race to change them over to the dries. But, well, no one seems to really want to bother changing my tyres. I guess they're all in the back having a nap or something. So I rejoined the circuit with my wet tyres. Fine line here between looking like an absolute idiot, like I have done, and getting it right. And unfortunately, well, I look like a bit of a fool on this one. Now my lap times just, well, actually I got DNF'd. My lap times were about 8 seconds off the pace or something. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much slower the wet tyres are when it's not raining. Anyway, okay, we're gonna have a proper race now. I set a qualifying time of 56.0 or 1 minute 56.0. I wish I could do it in 56 seconds, but I'm not quite that quick. Okay, so 1 minute 56.0 pole position. This is early on in the week. And we have a certain Mr. VLX Atomics, very quick guy on our tail. So, first race, early in the week. Let's try and establish some dominance here. Now, you may have seen my recent live stream. This is my favourite combination of racing in this game. Group 3 at the Nürburgring. It just seems to be a track that I can go very, very well at. And I tend to do well around here, so I'm always happy to see this circuit. So we're going to have a look at this lap here, lap number 3, and this lap here shows me that I can definitely do better than my qualifying time of 56.0, and it's going to be a 55.8 in the race, and that kind of shows you how I do alright when it really matters. Because as I'll explain slightly later in this video, qualifying can be very tricky for me. I find it quite tricky to really nail that one perfect lap. It's not something I've always been great at. I tend to perform better in the race. But I suppose the theme of the video being a fine line between success and failure, it really is the tiniest of differences that, well, tiniest of things that make the difference. And we'll go through that. So on this one, it's just the fact that you're in a race and the fact that you're very much you're absorbed by what's happening in the race, and you can kind of forget about your situation where you are and you just lap very quickly. But in qualifying, I suppose I'm too aware of my split times and if I'm up or down on my lap, and then I start bottling the lap. So many things to think about, which you shouldn't be thinking about really if you want to nail those qualifying times. Okay, so this is a really solid lap here. Purple sectors all the way, pretty much. Coming up to the final chicane, this can really make or break your lap. Braking before the 100 board, down into second gear, clatter the curb, absolutely abuse it. That is pretty much the track limit. 2 wheels on the red and white curb and you're good. And then one more corner to navigate. And we're going to see ourselves setting a rather decent lap here. Around the final turn, maximising the track width on the exit, over the curb and over the line, 55.8. Very solid lap time for a race lap, as you have to do it when it matters. Now this race actually got fairly hairy at the end here, and it was another example of a fine line being the difference between, in this instance, first and second. So I had a nice gap, and Atomics was close but never close enough to go for a pass, apart from here where I make that mistake through the chicane. He goes around the outside and into the final turn. You can actually see his nose poke in on the left hand side. He actually gets momentarily ahead, but it's not enough for him to win. So that mistake very nearly cost me that one after putting in very solid performance, but it was a good battle, and that showed me that I could improve my qualifying time. So the penalty magnet Babil wins the race. So my qualifying time there, I improved it to a 55.59, which I was really pleased with, but I know that I can go quicker, and this was the really annoying thing. You see there my time, 55.95, the lap I just did. And we're going to watch this first sector because it's going to show you that I can definitely go quicker than that 55.59. As I feel as though I could sneak into a top 10 if I absolutely nailed a lap, but it's really difficult, of course. And when I set that 55.59, that was number 1 in the region, only on Monday morning, but still not too bad. Now coming out of here, you can see the gap. I am more than half a second up on that lap of a 55.9, so I could definitely do a 55.4. And the problem is, once I go up on my time, I just start making mistakes. It is quite something I must work on. And throughout the rest of the lap, I was just losing half a tenth here, half a tenth there, and you can see the lap times there, just not quite what I want. And it was very frustrating because I know I could do 55.4, 55.3, but I just couldn't quite do it. I just couldn't seem to get it all down when it mattered. So very frustrating, and that's something I have to work upon in the future. Now I jumped into another race on my F4H Super GT account. It's almost like my Super GT account is my actual second account these days. It's got a lower sportsmanship rating, and sportsmanship rating about the same, but it's actually got a lower driver rating. And my Ram Shadow's actually got a pretty decent driver rating of about 66,000, I think. This account's about 60,000, so it's a little bit lower. I need to sort that out really. But gaining 2 positions here, starting last, quite tricky to gain positions, I think, especially getting towards the top 5 is not going to be easy. You can gain maybe 5, 6, 7 positions, but the race is very long, and actually it's not the easiest track to overtake around because I think everyone has actually got a fairly decent standard around here. Lots of people drive quite quickly, going to go for a late move up the inside, and tiny bit of contact through the corner. And I'm not sure what happened there. That was really weird. It was like we were going side by side and all of a sudden it just spins out. Unless there was an instance of lag or connection error there, but it looked really weird. I didn't quite understand what the hell happened. But anyway, 12th position. F4H Super GT, actually R4M Super GT, it turns out. Up behind an Alfa Romeo now. Onto the back straight. We're tucking to that slipstream. Using the Audi R8 here with the Taylor Swift livery, you might be able to vaguely see at the bottom left of the screen. Not very easy to see, I suppose. But those of you who know the livery will just know, won't you? Into the back of this guy. You definitely could have carried a bit more speed into there. So we actually nudge him. It actually helps him, if anything, because he actually gets further up the track. So through the final corner, lap number 1, we've gained 3 positions, not too bad a return. If we can gain 3 more positions on the next 3 laps, we'll be on the podium. But that is going to be unlikely, very, very difficult once the race settles down, especially, of course, we all know it, the rolling start, everyone's so spread out. You're about a gazillion miles away from the next person at the start of the race. Okay, so I'm going to whack my ABS, not ABS, brake balance, sorry. Down to -5, all the way to the front for this car, just to really get that back end to swing round. And actually helps you, just helps with the balance of this car overall. So right on the tail of the Alpha now. Is he going to go defensive? Yes, he is. Okay, interesting. Going to keep him to the inside and perhaps go for a move on the way out. No, not quite. Through turn 5, through turn 6. Get something on the exit here. The Alpha's actually not too bad in a straight line. Sorry, in the corners. Straight line speed, not its strength. I'm going to go defensive once again. Going to hold him to the right hand side and move back to the left. And again, try to search for something on the way out of the corner. There we go, we've got the overlap, or the underlap, whatever you want to call it, up towards the Schumacher S, side by side through here. And we're going to have to give him space on the left hand side, we do. Through the exit though, there's contact out of nowhere, and we're sent spinning around, and we're going to lose a good handful of time there. Going down a couple of positions as well. Very frustrating that, because I felt like I gave him enough space, but then, boom, you're in the barrier all of a sudden. So, down to 13th. Tried to catch back up, and we kind of have done here. He's under pressure now from his fellow Netherlander. That is not a word, is it? My God, his fellow Dutchman. That's the correct term. As we come up to the next set of corners, the fast left and then the fast right. He's got a penalty, in fact. Mercedes up his inside from his fellow Netherlander. as we then come down towards the back straight. I'm going to show my displeasure at that move. Doink, off we go. Well, he's actually still on the track. Didn't really affect him too much. But as we come up towards the chicane, just check this out. I can't really explain exactly what happened here, but I think the car in 10th goes very wide, tries to rejoin into everyone's path, causes a massive knock-on effect. The Alpha goes back through past a lot of us. This guy gets a 5-second penalty for what was not really his fault. We go past him, he's going to serve that anyway. And then I'm in 12th, and then I got up to 10th, courtesy of those penalties. So a really weird final couple of corners to that race there. And managed to get up to the top 10. Taylor Swift, as always, licking those disco's crumbs off of her finger, so she's happy. But anyway, we move on. I set a proper qualifying lap on this account. I think I did a 55.8. That 55.59 I did, it was almost like lightning in a bottle. I really struggled to replicate it. I know I can do a 0.3 or 0.4, but I struggled. I couldn't seem to replicate it. So we're going to have to make do with 55.8, starting from 5th on the grid, once again in the Taylor Swift liveried Audi R8. Let's watch this race from start to finish, because let me tell you, it's a good one. Coming into the first corner, lots of people doing the tyre warming technique. As well, you do have to make note of the fact that your tyres will be cold. It's very easy just to make a very silly mistake on the first lap when your tyres aren't quite up to temperature. Looking up the inside here, is it going to work? Yes, we've got the cutback on him. Up the inside, maybe the Porsche as well, who's pushed slightly wide. He's on our right here. We can't quite go around the outside, or can we? He's going to give me the space. He gives me lots of space. There's plenty of the extra tarmac on the left-hand side. And we've got the inside for turn number 5. We get the move done. 5th to 3rd in, well, not even half a lap. So that's not too bad. The only downside really is that the gap already has opened up to the top 2. You see they have extended a margin of over 1.5 seconds. That shows you how much fighting can affect the race. Sometimes that can be the end of the race, you know. If the guys at the front are very quick, you know, you're not going to catch them unless you've got the slipstream. And we don't have that right now. So we're going to have to put in some laps. The main thing you're hoping for in this situation is the fact that the guys at the front might start fighting. And that is something that can swing the pendulum in your favour. And once again, the theme of the video, these fine differences, these fine lines between success and failure. And it really is the tiny differences that count. So if these guys work together, sometimes it's up to the guy in second, you could say, to just sit behind the guy in first for a while, for a lap or two, to establish a gap, and then start fighting later on. But actually he's gone for the move there. I suppose if the opening appears, then you might as well go for it, I suppose. But sometimes you want to work together just to make sure that the guys behind don't get a sniff of the race. So if these guys stop fighting, just started lapping for a couple of laps, then I wouldn't really stand a chance in the race. But thankfully for me, they are fighting, and that's always good news. As we come into the first corner, there is actually a change for the lead. We've got someone in the Supra. Actually, they're running each other very narrow there. The Italian in the lead is actually in the Supra, the Toyota Supra. Quick car around here, just very difficult to drive, especially on traction. The Audi R8, as ever, very, very quick, especially through the corners, just has really almost unrivaled handling ability through these turns. Now, again, they're still fighting, and you can see I've definitely gained here, a little bit wide there, through turn 5 into turn 6, really getting hooked up with the apex and powering out early. And that is the key I've noticed, I think, in this game, to really maximising your speed, your lap times, is getting on the power early. Just making sure that you get the right line so that you can get on the power as early as possible. And that really seems to be the big difference between, you know, the best players and then the next best players. The fact that the very best can just get on the power a tiny bit earlier by getting a slightly smoother line through the corner. And that seems to be the main difference I notice in the game. And we've definitely gained once again. So these top 2 fighting a little bit too much. They've given me a chance to get back into the race with perhaps a little bit more finesse and logic. They might have worked together, but alas, that is not the case. So coming through the chicane, pretty much we've made this a 3-way battle. And, well, the leader's going to make it a two-way battle, because he says, au revoir, goodbye, I'm off to the grass, to the barrier. He says his farewells, and we move up into second. So it's a straight race now between myself and the Netherlander as we come into the first corner. Late on the brakes, look at that, right up to the back of him. Still managed to clip the apex. Over to the right hand side the best you can to open up turn number 2. Lifting through the entry and then powering back out. Keep your left two wheels on that red and white curb, maximising the track width. And that is really crucial around this circuit, especially this first sector, just really pretty much abusing the track limits that are allowed in the game. But this is going to be a close one, as we've gained from 5th up to 2nd, and potentially a race win here, which would be awesome, especially from 5th. It's never easy to win races, especially a race B of only about 8 minutes in length. It's not always easy to come through from that kind of position in a top split. Not that there's absolute, total best players in the world in here, but these guys are fairly quick, and this guy's lap time I think was a 55.5, so certainly no slouch. So I think my 55.5 was about top 50 in the world at the time of doing it, or in the middle of the week at least. 55.5, not too bad a lap time. I'm quite pleased with that actually, being able to at least get well within the top 100 in the world. If you look at Kudos Prime, you can see the overall statistics. Following this guy in the slipstream. Okay then, coming up towards the chicane, we've definitely got the slipstream. Which side is he going to protect? The left. I'm going to keep him to the left as long as possible, but then good defence that was actually. Moving back over to the racing line, but leaving enough space on the right hand side, so good defending. That's pretty much as good defending as you can see, I think. So he did a really, really nice job into the chicane. We have another chance then into turn 1. This is the final lap beginning right now. 1 lap to go. Is he going to be able to protect his lead on the final lap? I'm going to keep him again narrow, then move over to the left hand side. Has he gone too deep? It looks like he might have done a little bit. Go for the cutback. If anything, I brake too early, so I can't capitalise on that. But we are still in with a shout of race victory with 3/4 of a lap remaining. Guys behind are a little bit too far back to worry about, so it's actually another Netherlander. Lots of Dutch guys in this one today. As we come up towards turn 5 and 6, not really an overtaking opportunity unless you already have an overlap. Going in and through 6, trying to get on the power as early as possible. This guy is quick, he really is, and I think the main thing that can build your confidence, especially in a pressurised situation like he is in right now, is doing a lot of qualifying laps. So I see people asking on the GT Planet forums, for example, how do you deal with pressure in a race? I think the main thing really is to be really confident of your braking points and where you're turning and where you're accelerating. So you've got someone behind you, okay, no worries, I know where I'm braking, and just focus on where you're meant to brake, and then just lap as you're meant to lap, and almost forget about the guy behind, and then just look at them at certain times. So you're coming out of this corner, you're on a straight, he can look behind now, because you're on a straight, easy enough. He's going to have to look behind, because I do have the slipstream, not quite as close as I was on the previous lap though, so he's not going to defend, and that was the right decision. He's going to be way too far back to go for a lunge from there. Is it possible we can go for a move into the final corner? It's getting quite close. We're going to go for the cutback, force him narrow, and we're going to look for the gap on the exit. There it is, just opening up. We're going to accelerate into it. It's going to be really close. We're going to be partially side by side, but it's not enough for me. We're going to finish in second. Really good battle. Really, really enjoyable fight with this guy. And ultimately, we've gone through from 5th up to 2nd. And the Supra disappointed. He started on pole position, drops down to 6th place, and the Supra's actually a decent car, but just a little bit tricky to control. But fair play for going for something different. But there we go. I do hope you've enjoyed this one, as always. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe if you'd like to see more, and do hit the like button if you did enjoy. That's all from me. Have a nice day. I will see you next time. Goodbye.